this human chorionic gonadotropin, or HCG. This is produced by the placenta, and this is detected on the 8th to 10th day of or after fertilization. So this is now the basis for the pregnancy test, your HCG, or the human chorionic gonadotropin. And this human chorionic gonadotropin will maintain the corpus luteum until the 3rd month of pregnancy, and the corpus luteum will now gradually degenerate. And the function of the corpus luteum, what is the function of the corpus luteum again? Production of estrogen and progesterone. The function now of the corpus luteum will be taken over by the placenta. So the placenta now will produce estrogen and progesterone when the corpus luteum has degenerated. And what is now the role of estrogen and progesterone during pregnancy? It will maintain the pregnancy until parturition. Okay, so let's now take up the fallopian tubes, or uterine tubes, or oviducts. So these are paired muscular tubes, the functions of which it provides a suitable environment for, and is the most common site of fertilization. And it also transports the zygote to the uterus with the aid of the contractions of the muscular layer of the fallopian tube and the ciliary motion. So there are 4 regions there. You have the infundibulum, ampulla. Ampulla, this is the most common site of fertilization. And then you have the isthmus and the pars interstitialis. So there are 3 layers of the fallopian tube. You have the mucosa, muscularis, and the serosa, or adventitia. So take note that the mucosa, the lining epithelium of the fallopian tube, is simple ciliated columnar epithelium, and it has 2 main cell types. You have the ciliated columnar cells and the PEG cells, which are non-ciliated, and they also produce mucus. Okay. And then you have the muscularis, which is composed of smooth muscle fibers or cells, and the serosa. Next is the uterus. This is a single, thick, pear-shaped, hollow muscular organ, the mucosa of which is responsive to the hormonal stimulation. So the mucosa undergoes cyclic changes in response to the menstrual, or in relation to the menstrual cycle. So the uterus is a site of embryonic implantation and development and formation of placenta. So there are 3 regions. You have the fundus, the body, and cervix. So with respect to the fundus and body, there are 3 layers of the uterus. You have the endometrium, which is the mucosa of the uterus, and then you have the myometrium, which is a muscular layer, and the perimetrium. Okay? So endometrium, or the uterine mucosa, this is composed of a simple columnar epithelium, and take note that the columnar epithelium extends down into the connective tissue stroma of the lamina propria, forming the endometrial glands, or the uterine glands. And there are two zones of the endometrium. You have the functional layer and the basal layer. The functional layer responds to the stimulation by the ovarian hormones, and this is only a temporary layer. Why? Because this layer is shed off during menstruation. So it contains coiled or spiral arteries. Then the basal layer, this is the permanent layer, and this is or the layer retained during menstruation. So it contains straight arteries, and the basal cells of endometrial glands are responsible for the re-epithelialization of the endometrium. So the blood supply comes from the uterine arteries, which branch to form the arcuate arteries, which in turn give rise to the straight arteries. So straight arteries are found in the stratum basale, while the coiled or spiral arteries are found in stratum functionale. Then the myometrium, this is the thickest layer of the uterus, and is composed of 3 layers, okay, of smooth muscle cells. So the outer and the inner layers are longitudinal in orientation, while the middle is circular. And during pregnancy, this layer thickens due to hypertrophy and hyperplasia of individual smooth muscle cells due to estrogen. And then you have the serosa or adventitia, which is also known as the perimetrium, composed of simple squamous mesothelium. The cervix, in the cervix, the lining epithelium there is a tall columnar mucus-secreting epithelium lining the cervical canal, and nearer the vaginal area, it is lined by stratified non-keratinized squamous epithelium. And take note that the switch in the epithelium, this squamo-columnar junction, this is the most common site for cervical cancer. So the cervical epithelium doesn't slough during menstruation, but its mucus-secreting cells are responsive to estrogen and progesterone. And with the presence of estrogen, which is at the mid-cycle, the mucus there is the thinnest and most elastic. It can be drawn into threads, and this test is known as Spin-Barkay test. So you have to stretch the mucus with your fingers, and it is the most elastic and the thinnest one at the mid-cycle due to the influence by the estrogen. With the presence of progesterone, the cervical mucus is thick. And during pregnancy, there is a thick cervical mucus plug known as cervical mucus, known as a cervical plug at the cervical os. Okay. Then you have now the menstrual cycle. The normal range is 25 to 36 days, average 28 days. Okay, so there are 3 phases of your menstrual cycle. You have the menstrual phase, the proliferative phase, and the luteal phase. So menstrual phase, this is from the first day of menstrual bleeding to day 3 to day 5 of the cycle. And this is characterized by this formation of the functionalis layer of endometrium. So this stage is initiated by the low levels of progesterone. And then you have now proliferative phase. So this occurs on days 4 to 6 to day 14. And this is characterized by re-epithelialization of the lining of endometrium. So after menstruation, there is now re-epithelialization. So it coincides with the growth of the follicles in the ovaries. Therefore, it is also known as follicular phase. And then the secretory phase or luteal phase. So this occurs on day 15 to 28 days. Okay? And this is maintained by the corpus luteum producing estrogen and progesterone. Okay, so there is this. Take note that the glands grow and become coiled in the later part of the phase, and the glands are known. The characteristic of the gland is sawtooth. And during the early phase of the luteal, early part of the luteal phase, there is this secretion, high secretion of glycogen in the basal cells, and this is known as basal vacuolation. Okay. So let's now take up the placenta. So this is a temporary organ whose function begins during implantation. And And the placenta is also considered as a temporary endocrine organ because it produces placental hormones. Okay, so you have now the composition of the placental barrier. Okay, so what is the functional endocrine units of the placenta? Functional endocrine unit of the placenta. Do you read your books before coming to school? No. No. Sometimes. Sometimes. For most of the time, no. So the functional endocrine units of the placenta is the chorionic villus. Okay? Chorionic villus. And in the core of the chorionic villus are two types of cells. We have the mesenchymal cells and the macrophage. Macrophage, otherwise known as the Hofbauer cell. Okay? So there are two types, two layers of the placenta. The chorionic villus, you have the syncytial trophoblast and the cytotrophoblast. So let's take up fertilization. So what is fertilization? Fertilization? The fusion or the union of the sperm and oocyte. So the time between ovulation and fertilization is about 24 hours. Why 24 hours? Not 48 hours, not 36 hours, not 72 hours. What? Because of the lifespan of the ovum, which is 24 hours. What is the lifespan of the sperm? 72 hours. Okay. And then you have implantation. This is penetration of the uterine epithelium by the blastocyst. So implantation is the first step of placentation. So take note, penetration of the uterine epithelium by the blastocyst. So the blastocyst will implant at the mucosal layer or at the endometrium. Okay? If the blastocyst will implant deeper, then it is a condition known as placenta accreta or placenta increta or placenta percreta. So it depends upon the layer, either in the muscular or in the serosal or adventitial layer. Okay. So placentation is the placental development. Okay, so there is a decidual reaction. These are changes in the endometrium immediately after implantation induced by developing trophoblasts. Okay, what is decidual? Decidual. You have there decidual reaction. So it comes from the word decidual, comes from the word decidual. What is decidual? It is a layer. That is what? What again? Come again? What is decidua? Decidua. It is decidua. Nurses. For nurses here. Nurses. Nurses. What is the seed? Part of the endometrium. Then Okay, decidua is a specific name for the endometrium during pregnancy. Okay, decidua. What is endometriosis? So